So just for a second, really try to imagine this. You find out with 100% certainty that there's no grand plan, no cosmic purpose baked into the universe for you. That every single thing you do, every struggle, every victory, ultimately means nothing in the grand scheme of things.
And then imagine the bizarre, shocking feeling when you realize this isn't a curse. It's actually a key that can unlock a kind of radical freedom that most people never, ever get to experience. Sounds nuts, right? Well, just stick with me here.
That's really the promise of this whole explainer. Together, we're going to walk through the thinking that led the philosopher Albert Camus to this exact wild conclusion. And this isn't about some cheesy self-help advice. It's about looking straight into the abyss and finding a genuine reason to smile right back at it.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to tackle the one brutal fact that most of us spend our entire lives trying to ignore. Then, we'll look at the 3 most common escape routes people take and why they're all dead ends. And finally, we'll get to the good stuff, the one mindset that lets you look at all of this and actually laugh.
Okay, so let's get right into it. The whole philosophy of absurdism is built on one single and, let's be honest, pretty uncomfortable idea. And it all starts with a question that every single one of us is asked.
You know the feeling, right? Maybe it hits you late at night when you can't sleep, or when you're facing some huge life choice. You just look up and ask, what is the point of all this? Why am I here? We're all looking for some kind of sign, some purpose, some answer from the universe.
And you know what answer comes back? Absolutely nothing. Just silence. Complete, total, deafening silence. The universe doesn't have an opinion about your life. It's not for you or against you, it's just there. It's completely indifferent.
And this is the key. Pay attention to this definition because it's everything. The absurd isn't the idea that life is meaningless. No, it's the clash. It's this constant friction between two things. Us, humans, who are desperately wired to search for meaning and purpose, and the universe, which just silently refuses to give us any. That tension, that gap right in the middle, that's what Camus called the absurd.
So, once you really feel that tension, once you recognize the absurd for what it is, you're at a crossroads. You have to choose how to respond. Now, most people immediately scramble for an escape hatch, and according to Camus, there are 3 main ones people try. The problem is, they're all traps. I want you to picture being in a room with 3 doors. Door number 1 is labeled physical suicide. Door number 2, philosophical suicide. And then there's door number 3, which is something totally different, revolt. Let's break down why those first 2 doors are actually failed escapes.
Okay, door number 1. This is the choice to just end it all. To decide that a life that has no built-in meaning simply isn't worth living. But for Camus, this isn't a real solution. It's just a surrender. It's basically saying, you win, absurdity. You're ending the game before you even learn the rules. So for Camus, that door is a non-starter. Now, this second door is way, way more common, and it's a lot sneakier. Philosophical suicide isn't about ending your physical life. It's about ending your conscious awareness of the absurd. It's just a different, more comfortable way to surrender. This is what he calls the leap of faith. It's when you decide to just blindly accept a pre-made system of meaning to numb yourself to the universe's silence. You might say, well, God has a plan, or my political party has all the answers, or karma will make it all make sense in the end. You're essentially outsourcing your search for meaning. Camus says this is a kind of suicide too, because you're killing the very part of your brain that is brave enough to see the problem in the first place. You're just pretending the clash doesn't exist.
So, if door number 1 is giving up, and door number 2 is just pretending, what in the world is behind door number 3? Well, for Camus, this is the only option that's honest, authentic, and in its own way, heroic. It's the path of the absurd hero. It's revolt.
Now, it's really important to get this right. Revolt here doesn't mean you're picking up a sign and protesting in the streets. This is an internal rebellion. It's the act of looking at the absurd, the silence, the futility, all of it, square in the face, acknowledging it completely, and then making the conscious choice to live anyway. And not just to get by, but to live with passion, to live with freedom, and to basically spite the silent universe by creating your own joy. To really drive this idea of revolt home, Camus turned to an ancient Greek myth, a story about a man whose eternal punishment becomes the ultimate symbol of finding happiness in a meaningless task.
So let me introduce you to Sisyphus. This guy was a king who tricked the gods, and as you can imagine, they weren't too happy about it. So they gave him a truly awful punishment. For all of eternity, he has to push a giant boulder up a hill. But the moment he gets to the very top, the boulder rolls all the way back down to the bottom. His task is endless, it's pointless, and is completely futile. It is the perfect metaphor for an absurd life.
And yet, Camus makes this absolutely shocking claim. He says, one must imagine Sisyphus happy. I mean, what? That sounds completely insane, right? How could anyone find happiness in that eternal, pointless loop? What could possibly be the source of his joy?
And here's the twist. It's absolutely brilliant. Sisyphus becomes happy precisely because he gives up hope. Now, I don't mean he becomes a pessimist. He gives up the hope for an external solution. He stops hoping the gods will change their minds. He stops hoping that one day the boulder might just stay at the top. By letting go of that kind of hope, he totally disarms the punishment. The gods wanted him to suffer by wishing for an escape, but he simply refuses to play their game. Think about that moment when Sisyphus is at the top of the hill. He watches the rock roll all the way back down. In that moment, he is completely aware of his fate. He's not fooling himself. He knows what's coming next. And in that clear-eyed acceptance, he becomes the master of his reality. His fate is his and his alone. That tiny moment of conscious awareness is his freedom. It's his revolt. It's his victory.
And this just nails the central message. It's not about ever getting the boulder to stay at the top. The meaning isn't in the destination. The meaning is found in the struggle itself. As Camus wrote, the struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart.
Okay, that's a cool story about some guy with a rock, but how does any of this apply to us, right now, in our real lives with jobs and bills and traffic? How do we actually put this into practice? Let's get down to it.
Okay, first things first. This is so important. Absurdism is not the same thing as nihilism. A nihilist looks at a meaningless universe and says, well, if nothing matters, I'm just going to do nothing. What's the point? But the absurdist looks at the exact same situation and comes to the complete opposite conclusion. They say, if nothing matters, then I'm free to do everything. There are no cosmic rules holding me back. I get to create my own meaning. You see the difference? It's a philosophy of rebellion, not resignation.
So, what does this look like in your daily life? Well, it means you stop waiting for some sign from the universe to tell you what to do. You just pick something and you go for it. It means you treat your career, your hobbies, whatever, like they're art projects you're doing just for the joy of it, not like homework assignments you have to get an A on. It means you love people with everything you've got, not because it's part of some grand destiny, but simply because that connection is beautiful right here, right now. Every single moment you enjoy just for what it is, without needing it to have some bigger why, is a tiny act of revolt.
And this all brings us to the final and maybe the most powerful piece of the puzzle. This is the part that really transforms this whole philosophy from something that sounds kind of dark and depressing into something that's incredibly life-affirming.
After all this talk about a silent universe and futile struggles, it would be so easy to think that this philosophy makes our lives worthless. But that is the very last illusion we need to let go of.
It does the exact opposite. The fact that there's no eternal, built-in meaning doesn't devalue our lives. It makes every single moment infinitely valuable. It makes our lives priceless.
The logic is actually incredibly simple. If there's no cosmic scoreboard keeping track, no afterlife where everything gets sorted out, then this, right now, this breath, this feeling, this experience, this is all there is. This isn't a rehearsal for the real show. This is the show.
You know that first sip of coffee in the morning? Or that feeling when a song you love comes on, or just a genuine laugh with a good friend. We usually think of those as just little distractions from our real purpose in life. But absurdism says, no, you've got it all backward. Those moments, they aren't distractions from the meaning, they are the meaning. And that's a kind of meaning that no silent universe can ever take away from you.
So let's just quickly recap everything. We've got the absurd, that fundamental conflict between us and the universe. We saw how the common escapes, surrender or denial, are really just traps. The only true way forward is revolt, choosing to live with passion and defiance. And the beautiful paradox is that realizing there's no grand cosmic meaning is what makes this present moment, right now, absolutely priceless.
And so I'll leave you with this one question to think about. We all have our own boulders we're pushing. The repetitive job, the difficult relationship, the personal struggles. So what is the boulder in your life that, after hearing all this, you might be ready to look at and smile?
And for one last thought, a little piece of absurd irony.
Albert Camus himself died in a car crash when he was only 46, and when they checked his coat pocket, they found an unused train ticket. He was supposed to take the train that day. A completely random, meaningless, and utterly absurd end. I guess the universe gets the last laugh. Thanks for joining me.